On the surface, the US economy looks like it's absolutely on fire. But if you dig just a little deeper, you'll find these powerful clashing forces of tension and transformation that are creating a really uncertain future. So in this explainer, we're going to unpack the pressures shaping the American economy right now.
I mean, just take a look at the stock market. The S&P 500 just closed above 69.75 for the first time in history. And why does that matter? Well, the S&P tracks 500 of the biggest companies in the US, so a record high like this is a huge sign of just broad market optimism.
And hey, this isn't just your typical stock market rally. Over in the world of digital assets, Bitcoin has absolutely roared back, reclaiming that massive $93,000 milestone. It really shows that this optimism isn't just stuck in one place. Money's flowing into all sorts of assets, new and old.
And you're hearing this sentiment echoed from the very top. President Trump himself has declared that the economic boom has officially begun. But, and this is a big but, this boom is happening right alongside some truly monumental shifts.
So, let's dive into the first major area of transformation here, the world of crypto. It feels like it's at a huge crossroads, and we might be this close to getting some real clarity on how it's all regulated.
You don't have to take my word for it. SEC Chair Paul Adkins summed it up perfectly, just saying, this is a big week for crypto. So, what in the world is going on?
Okay, so what you're looking at here is a draft of the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act. It's a brand new bill that just got introduced in the U.S. Senate. Basically, this is the big attempt to finally write the rulebook for digital assets in America.
So what exactly is a market structure bill? Well, think of it like this. For years, crypto has been kind of the Wild West, right? A total legal gray area. This bill is trying to be the new sheriff in town. It wants to create a clear official system by answering the big questions like, what is a digital commodity? Who's in charge of it? And how can people legally buy and sell it? This could literally transform the entire industry.
So, while Congress is trying to bring some clarity to one part of the economy, a very public fight is brewing a whole lot of uncertainty in another. Now let's pivot to a huge point of tension, a public showdown, really, between the president and the Federal Reserve. And this slide really lays out the conflict perfectly. On one side, you have President Trump demanding meaningful rate cuts and even calling Fed Chair Jerome Powell incompetent or crooked. On the other side, what does the Fed do? It just added $105 billion to its balance sheet. Now that's just a way of pumping more money into the system, and it's the biggest move like that since last year's banking crisis. It's something you do when you're worried about a crisis, not when things are booming. Kind of weird, right? So why the disconnect? Well, it all comes down to this number, 2.7%. That is the current U.S. inflation rate. See, the Fed's #1 job is to keep a lid on inflation, so they're super hesitant to cut interest rates and pour more fuel on the fire no matter how much political heat they're getting.
And speaking of that heat, it's getting very, very direct. So check this out. First, you have Rick Rieder, a huge name from BlackRock, calling for the Fed to slash rates down to 3%. And then, what's the next headline we see? President Trump is interviewing that same guy for the top job at the Fed. This has gone way beyond a simple debate. This could be a changing of the guard.
All right, that brings us to our third and maybe most immediate source of tension. Let's just call it the tariff time bomb. And folks, it is ticking loudly. Okay, get this. Right now, legal analysts are giving it a 73% chance that the Supreme Court will rule President Trump's tariffs illegal. And that decision is expected tomorrow. The consequences could be absolutely staggering. So what happens if they do? Well, the president himself didn't mince words. He said a ruling against the tariffs would be a complete mess and almost impossible for our country to pay. So, what does he mean by pay?
What he's talking about is this massive number. A ruling could mean the U.S. government has to pay back hundreds of billions of dollars to all the companies that paid those tariffs in the first place. It's a fiscal bombshell that could literally redraw the country's economic map in a single day.
So let's just step back for a second. You've got a booming market, a tech revolution about to get its first rulebook, a public war over money policy, and this giant legal decision just hanging over everything. It all leads to the big question. Where do we go from here? So let's just run through the pressure points one more time. The markets, all-time highs. Crypto regulation, it's on the table right now. The Federal Reserve's future, an open conflict is brewing. And that massive tariff ruling, it's literally just hours away.
And that right there, that is the core tension pulling at the U.S. economy right now. On one hand, you you have soaring markets, real optimism. On the other, you have these foundational clashes over regulation, over money, over trade. The boom is real, but so are the forces that could bring it all to a grinding halt. The question isn't just boom or bust. It's which of these powerful forces will win out. And with the Supreme Court decision right around the corner, we might not have to wait long to find out.